morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Clear mountain mornings, a willing horse heading up a timbered trail, and boy, I hope I never take these precious days for granted.
As you shag out in that pre-dawn dark, you can hear the slapping tack. You feel the rhythm of the hoofbeats as your mount is making tracks.
That's Marty Blocker, and he'll be in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight today. And Baxter Black, of course, will be along, and he's going to talk about a problem with wranglers, the denim kind.
But no matter how skinny they make the pant legs, the seat still bags. And when I finally do get them on, I give the appearance of a swing set somebody tried to gift wrap.
Yep, and on the Rangeland news, will range riding soon become a sunset career?
We had to go out and check on the cows, check on the sheep, check on the water. And now you've got a tool that can do that for you.
Yeah, we'll find out what that is. And on the horse training file for urban saddles and western wear, a horse that does not have many foundation skills. Can he still be a good one to buy? This week you might be surprised at my answer. And on our classic Song of the West segment, we'll continue the series on Songs of the Buckaroos. And this week's guest is a guy who for many years was editor and publisher of Western Horseman Magazine, and actually he had aspirations of a rodeo career.
The bareback horses like to killed me, and I took some great wrecks in the steer wrestling.
That's Randy Witte, and you'll enjoy his stories and a lot of behind-the-scenes happening at that iconic Western lifestyle magazine. Now, it's been a while since Mike Blakely released a new album, but as soon as I saw this one, I knew it would be great. Here's the title song from Outside Circle.
When I was a young boy, my age was barely 10, riding my first roundup with the older boys and men. The foreman sent our best hand where lesser men might fail, to ride the outside circle, the longest, roughest trail. I watched that top hand ride out on a skittish colt that day. Once on a distant ridge, I saw him turning horns my way. He penned the herd by evening, his pony soaked with sweat. I made myself a promise that I still remember yet. One day I'd ride the outside circle, and I'd make a top hand, riding through the sage so purple, round the Ocotillo stand. And I'd chouse the wildest cattle on the roughest broncos, and I'd ride the outside circle for the brand. I held my promise sacred, and I aimed to keep my word. I learned to throw a fast loop from the rankest in the herd. And it was 10 years later when I heard the roundup boss. He said, "You'll ride the outside circle, son. Go catch yourself a horse." And I rode the outside circle, and I became top hand, riding through the sage so purple, round the Ocotillo stands. And I choused the wildest cattle on the roughest broncos, and I rode the outside circle for the brand. These days I am the foreman. Some say I'm growing old. It's true my hair is silver, and it's plain my legs are bowed. I ride the inside circles now, but just ask my cowboy peers. They know I rode that outside circle for well nigh 30 years. Yes, I rode the outside circle. I became top hand, riding through the sage so purple, round the Ocotillo stands. And I choused the wildest cat on the roughest broncos, and I rode the outside circle for the brand. And in dreams I ride the ridges, in my stirrups I still stand, and I ride the outside circle for the brand.
That's just one of so many great songs on Mike's new release, The Outside Circle. Well, I got my first copy of Western Horseman Magazine in 1956, given to me by an old cowboy from Alberta who ran a dude string at Alberta Beach. His name was Ed Russell. Nickname was Cowboy King, and when we were putting together ideas for this radio program, I wanted it to be a little bit in sound like the magazine is in print. And this is kind of neat because a while back I had a chance to visit with longtime Western Horseman publisher Randy Witte. And he told me about an article he'd written that actually got him a good mark in his journalism class in high school and a job at the magazine. I can almost remember reading that, I think.
Well, you go back quite a ways, Hugh, so, you know, you dated yourself.
Well, I know I did because I remember the cartoon feature that Dick Spencer did called Bucky that ran regularly in every issue for a long time. Got a great kick out of that. And there's something, you know, Dick Spencer was a guy I never had the opportunity to meet, but if I ever could meet anyone in my life, it was going to be him. I always thought I would just love to meet this guy sometime because I've known so many people that have known him, and gosh, I think his guiding hand almost still seems to be on what the magazine is.
Boy, you said it just right, Hugh. Dick was such a likable fella, and people all over the country, actually all over the world, knew him. And he had a very strong influence in the development of Western Horseman. He came to work for Western Horseman there in Colorado Springs in 1951 as editor, and he served as editor through the rest of the 50s and the 60s. And in 1969, he became publisher of the magazine. But really, it was under his guiding hand as editor and then later publisher that the magazine continued to grow, and really he was a very, very likable person, and he liked people, and he got out among them, and to this day he's been gone. Well, he died of cancer in 1989. It came on rather suddenly, and boy, that was a blow to the magazine, I'll tell you. But the rest of us carried on, and the magazine's doing great. But I know there's really not a day goes by I don't think about Dick, you know, one way or the other, just because I was associated with him for so long, and there's been many times I'd say, well, let's see, what would Dick do about this, you know?
Well, I've heard that he was a wonderful storyteller. I just wonder, are there any Dick Spencer stories that you remember that are kind of etched in your memory?
Well, he really he liked just about anything to do with horses, really. He especially liked trail rides, though, and invariably he would be the unofficial guest speaker over around the campfire, you know, on a trail ride. So people liked to invite him to these things. But telling jokes was his real forte. I mean, he there wasn't a joke that I don't think he hadn't heard, and he would know various variations of jokes too. People would tell him one, and he'd finish the punchline for him, which, you know, sometimes made him a little upset. But he knew all the variations, and he could just keep you in stitches. I'm not a joke teller, but boy, I can still remember some of his good old jokes.
Well, there's more from Randy Witte and a good song from David Wilkie and Cowboy Celtic with My Little Brother Jim on guitar, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. With a steady hand, it says, Randy Witte guided the Western Horseman Magazine as publisher for 17 years. He joined it in 1977 as an editorial assistant, later became editor and was promoted to publisher in 1989. He retired in 2006, but during his tenure, the magazine grew to a circulation of more than 200,000. And Randy has also written and published a book on the history of the magazine. And when Randy Witte was covering rodeo for Western Horseman Magazine years ago, the beloved Dick Spencer III was the publisher, and at that time he was Randy's boss. Now the staff had the greatest respect for Dick, but I kind of wondered, did he ever have to kind of pull that noose a little tight on you guys to rein you in, or was he just very easygoing?
He was very easygoing. No, I'm not saying he couldn't, raise his voice or an eyebrow once in a while, if somebody was getting out of hand, but that didn't happen often. We were just like a family all through the years I was at the magazine, and I went to work there in 1977. And the nice thing about it was we all looked forward to the coffee breaks at 10 and 3. And we'd all gather down in the coffee room, mainly because Dick was going to be there, and he'd tell his jokes and stories and entertain us just like he did, out on the trail. But it was a very enjoyable period of my life when I was with Dick.
Did you get to spend some time horseback with him?
Oh, yeah, we sure did. I remember a very memorable trip, 2 or 3 years before he died. We went up on the Flat Tops, remote wilderness area in Colorado. And there was a group of us, and we had a real nice ride for several days. And of course, the entertainment each night was Dick. But he was. Those who knew him still remember him just like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, his first column that I remember was brush popping in the far west, they called it, and then it changed to brush popping, and then pony tracks, I think, was the last few years it was.
Yeah, I always liked brush popping, but I don't know. I can't remember just now why it was changed to Pony Tracks, but Pony Tracks was the name of his brand, and it was an Indian name that had been given to him. He had a little bit of Indian blood in him, too, and he was very proud of that.
Well, there's more from Randy after we head over the eastern slopes for a song written by Sid Marty, done here by David Wilkie and Cowboy Celtic with Denise Withnall on lead vocal, and my little brother Jim, who they borrowed from our Western Spirit Band, playing all the guitar parts on Other People's Cattle.
Streets of town didn't look to me like he belonged. Bought him a beer that winter night. He told me something of his life. He said, my money's getting lonely from lack of company, and my old truck is tired of defying gravity. The kids all call me Patches as round this town I go. I'll blame that on my mother for teaching me to sew. And I'm all stove up from 50 years of days spent in the saddle. I spent the best years of my life raising other people's cattle. I went down to the wishing well and I threw a penny in. A face I didn't recognize looked up at me and grinned. But I get dressed up for Leo's bar, I'd take a weekend chance. I'm too old for the ladies, but I'm not too old to dance. Though I'm all stove up from 50 years of days spent in the saddle, and some of them were good days, boys, raising other people's cattle. cursed myself, I cursed my God. Jenny whispered, it's not your fault. Our son lives in the city now, and so I've carried on, it seems. It's not as lonely as you think. She comes to hold me in my dreams. I'd hate to calculate the miles of barbed wire I've strung. Beloved stock dogs I've outlived, and ponies I've worn down. And they laugh to see what the sun has done to this weathered old redneck, and how the rope that took my thumb has left my hands a wreck. But I wouldn't trade my memories, you know the townie makes me shiver. He drinks his whole life from a glass, but I drank from the river. My riding roping days are done, I don't know why I keep that saddle. We help to feed this country, boys, raising other people's cattle. We help to feed this country, boys, raising other people's cattle.
I love her voice. Well, technology has changed immensely in the broadcast business since we started this show, and it was the same for the magazine industry, according to longtime Western Horseman publisher Randy Witte.
When I started there, they bought me a brand new electric typewriter, and so, most of the office, well, I guess all the office except for Dick had an electric typewriter, and that was the state of the art right then at that time.
Dick do his stuff just on a manual?
Dick used a manual typewriter. You know how maybe once or twice a year something happens, lightning strikes, or for some reason the power goes off. Well, that killed the electricity, and you could just count on it. We'd hear Dick step out of his office and he'd yell down the hallway, "I'm the only one who can still work because I have a manual typewriter."
Well, you had a fairly extensive rodeo career, I believe, too, did you, Randy?
It was a hobby. Yeah, I wasn't very proficient. I determined early on that it was more in my interest to be able to write about rodeo than ride. But I enjoyed the heck out of it. Yes, I was a bull rider, and the bareback horses like to killed me, and I took some great wrecks in the steer wrestling. But that really, it gave me the foundation that I needed to be able to write knowledgeably about rodeo, and that's what led to my position at Western Horseman. So I have rodeo to thank for where I am today with Western Horseman, because they hired me at a time when they needed somebody who could write about rodeo.
Had you had some serious aspirations of making rodeo a career for a while?
Not really. I knew that I always wanted to try it, and like I say, I never did feel like I had the ability or maybe the drive to actually make a go of it. But it's mainly because I knew I wanted to be a writer and in journalism, and the two just kind of went together for me. I was able to write about rodeo and other things too as time went by. So I really didn't waver from where I was headed, as a youngster. I knew early on I wanted to get into journalism.
There's more from Randy a little later, and Baxter Black talks about the problem with wranglers when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan with a little peek at the clothes horse. Ladies and gentlemen and followers of cowboy humor, I have carved another book from my funny bone, guaranteed to tickle your humorous. Sorry. The title is Scrambled Wisdom. Almost isn't is it? Which almost makes sense. Regardless, it's almost $20, only $19.95 plus shipping. Call 800-654-2550 or online at baxterblack.com. I'm the kind of cowboy who gives wranglers a bad name. It's not that I don't try on each pair before I buy. You have to. You know that old saying about bulls, there's more variation within the same breed than there is between breeds. Well, it's the same for jeans. There's more variation within the same size than there is between sizes. Maybe I'm just odd-shaped, hard to fit. They do make one style of wranglers that have legs that fit tight around a shovel handle, and I appreciate that. My calves are so puny I have to tamp dirt in my boot tops to hold them on. But no matter how skinny they make the pant legs, the seat still bags, and when I finally do get them on, I give the appearance of a swing set somebody tried to gift wrap. I've gotten picky about shirts. Buttons, except on the collar, with flaps on the pocket. Not a big deal, right? Well, I kind of back myself into a corner with such outrageous preferences. I can walk into a Western store with a shirt inventory large enough for the Chinese Army, and the only shirts with my requirements are a size 18.5 by 32, or they're the spitting image of a Denny's restaurant uniform. Of course, style and good taste are not my primary concerns. It's been said my fashion statement is sort of a cross between Porter Wagner and Dennis Rodman. I just don't like stuff to fall out of my pocket, you know. I do manage to wear good boots, which I save for good, but I buy bargains for my work boots. I got a good deal on some steel-toed Red Wings, size 9, on sale for $55, and I mean they're tough. I've been wearing them for 2 years. I'm tough, too. I normally wear size 10. I'm pretty hard on my headgear. My first criteria for a new hat is whether it'll come down over my ears and fit tight. Don't want her to blow off during an argument. Well, I feel like I'm turning into a shadow of Ace Reed's cartoon character Jake, kind of bent over, narrow at the shoulders, wide at the hip, and big at the hat. I did some work for Wrangler a while back. They asked if they could pay me in product, and I said, sure. They sent me a box of Sears and Roebuck jeans. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
In our many travels over the years, Billy and I have stayed at a lot of hotels, and one of our very favorites is the Sheraton in Red Deer. So many times for the main event, the Ivan Danes Country Music Picnic, and other occasions, it's been like a second home to us. There's no better place to have a conference, convention, meeting, wedding, or a family reunion. They have 3 great restaurants, and they really make you feel at home. And oh, those beds and pillows are so comfortable. We highly recommend it. You can call them toll-free 1-800-662-7197 from wherever you are. Well, just ahead of the Rangeland news, Bud Maynard is kind of a legend in the cowboy country of the Eastern Slopes. He took over as manager of the famous O.H. Ranch in 1989, and since he retired from that, he's been picking and singing and writing songs, and I just love some of the stuff he's done with the Bunchgrass Band. Here's a good one about the historic figure Tom Lynch.
Tom Lynch was an Idaho man when it was wild as it could be. He learned the ways of the wild bovine while the Mustang still ran free. You followed your dreams of the mall for gold into the Montana Territory. But empty nuggets that pay no debts is what Lynch found to be. So you headed up north with 2,000 head to the Bayou and MCC. And this is where you made your name and the legend came to be. Said, trail boss, a man like the frontier needs. Trail boss, where will your trails lead? The buffalo are gone, the plains are empty, so you pointed them big herds north. Trail boss, up north you'll find your worth. A gambling man with a golden hand, you always followed your dream. Your horses wore the Rockin' P brand at your camp by the medicine tree. You were racing horses with the Blackfoot band, and you never lost a race. Satan was your fastest mount, who always set the pace. Trail boss, a man like the frontier needs. Trail boss, Trail boss, where will your trails lead? The buffalo are gone, the plains are empty, so you pointed them big herds north. Trail boss, up north you'll find your word. Well, you kept your watch o'er the Mounties' cabin from a spot on the marker hill. Your mule was safe under the cover of the hills of the old PL. Now those days are gone, the drives are through, but your legend still remains. 'Cause you pointed them north with Herman and Ware to the hills of the TL range. I said, trail boss, a man like the frontier needs. Trail boss, where will your trails lead? The buffalo are gone, the plains are empty, so you pointed those big herds north. Trail boss, up north you'll show your worth. Up north you'll show your worth.
Okay, John, let's head 'em north.
Now the news of the Rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says, several mornings a week, I saddle a horse at the barn and I make about a 3-hour circle or more, checking cows and calves, looking for bulls, keeping an eye on the gates and the water holes, and it's one of my favorite ways to spend time, but I wonder if those of us who really enjoy doing some range riding are soon to be obsolete.
The Swiss Army knife of agriculture? That term has been applied by some relating to unmanned aerial vehicles, drones. It's an analogy that Virginia Cooperative Extension's Dan Swafford believes is more than appropriate.
I firmly believe in that. You can take a drone and use it for many different things on the farm in one day.
He acknowledges much of the talk about UAVs as a tool has focused on the crop side of agriculture.
You can go over there and check for insects. You can check for blight and disease. Check and see what part of the field is suffering from water, what needs more water.
Although Swafford's primary expertise with drones comes from the perspective of raising livestock.
As a child, I grew up on a farm in Missouri, and we had to go out and check on the cows, and check on the sheep, check on the water. And now you've got a tool that can do that for you.
Yet Swafford says more importantly, UAVs are adding potential technological capabilities every day. Examples include recording animal temperature or spot seeding and spraying crops. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, for about as long as we've been in the business, most of the calves and yearlings born and raised on British Columbia ranches have been shipped to Alberta and at one time Washington state feedlots. Well, ever since British Columbia's Agriculture Minister Lana Popham announced $450,000 in funding at the BC Cattlemen's Convention in Smithers earlier this year for determining the viability of a processing plant for these animals in the province, a lot of investigation has taken place, including the viability of a plant in the central location of Prince George as opposed to shipping them to Alberta. And BC Cattlemen's Association General Manager Kevin Boone says the economies of transportation are such that a distance of up to 700 kilometers is realistic. And this gives feedlots that are already in the province more opportunity to fatten, he said. And it will also support the growth of larger feeding industry, likely in the Nechako area, and more feed grains to be grown in the Peace region. And a business plan has also been completed. A model has been projected. The target is a daily run of 200 head for a total of about 50,000 head per year. And that would equal about 1/4 of the 200,000 head of cattle in BC. While researchers are recruiting commercial beef herd operators to take part in a Canada-wide project looking at key production indicators such as disease, calving records, and performance. And according to John Campbell of the Western College of Veterinary Medicine in Saskatoon, the goal is to create a Canadian version of the National Animal Health Monitoring System run through the USDA. A recent survey of 120 herds operating on the prairies yielded valuable information on disease prevalence, animal welfare, nutrition, biosecurity, and calf management. To participate in the study, producers had to have at least 100 cows per herd, but a lot of them were bigger than 300, and about half of them were from Alberta. Well, another long-time relationship has come to an end. Wendy's has ended its decade-old ties with Arby's as it sold 12.3% stake in the sandwich chain's parent for U.S. $450 million last week, giving it a boost as it battles larger rivals like Burger King and McDonald's. Wendy's will sell its stake to Inspire Brands, which is owned by Roark Capital, at a price of 38% higher than its most recent valuation on the investment. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam and the deer and the antelope play. I still love those words from Brewster Higley. And rumors of an antelope in the Oakburn, Manitoba area last month were confirmed when Kendra Sitko took several pictures of the animal, and Chris Harizak of the Shoal Lake branch of Sustainable Development added to the confirmation. Antelope are extremely rare in the Keystone Province, and it's hard to figure how this one got there. They apparently don't swim rivers or cross bodies of water. And you folks who catch us every Sunday afternoon on CJSN in Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, probably already know this. Garrett Glasrud ranches with his dad Ray on the edge of the Cypress Hills in the Bench Valley, about 18 kilometers west of Shaunavon, and they run around 300 cows in a cow-calf, Simmental, and Angus operation, and they put up hay on about 700 acres. But in late July, Garrett moved his wife and young baby to Colorado to take a job as the linebackers coach at Western State Colorado University. He earned a scholarship after playing high school football in Shaunavon and played on the defensive line at Montana State Northern for 4 years. He was eligible for the 2009 CFL draft, but any dream of a playing career ended with a broken arm he got while working in the stockyards. So good luck, Garrett, and hopefully you can still get horseback at the home ranch in the off-season. Interesting watching the fall run get rolling at the BC Livestock Co-op, and we often watch the live sales streaming at bclivestock.bc.ca, and that's where you can get all the information on up-and-coming sales and much more. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail auction market, a great opportunity to acquire some top-quality horses at the Dwight Ungstad Herd Reduction Sale September 21st at 7 p.m., and, of course, there are regular cattle sales every Wednesday, and to book your cattle, just call them at 1-800-710-3166. And that takes us down to the final item. And according to our pal trick roper Bud Edgar, there's been a big recall on round balers as we head into the feeding season. That's right. Apparently, ranchers are complaining that cows just aren't getting square meals. Okay. And thanks, Bud. That's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a listener's looking at a horse to buy. This horse really doesn't have a lot of things that a horse with an all-round foundation should have, but would he be wise to buy him anyway? Well, maybe. That's next when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West, and I think my horse would like a word right now.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Back to school means back to Irvine Tack and Western Wear. Saddle up for 70,000 square feet of selection, something for everyone. Like I always say, it's Western Wear with a welcome twist. Jeans, boots, shirts, outerwear, and accessories. Latest styles and top names like Wrangler, Cinch, and Under Armour, with sweet deals to help you balance that back-to-school budget. So this fall, stand out and suit up with Irvine Tack and Western Wear. Off exit 305 on Highway 2 by Crossfield, open 7 days a week. Well, I had an interesting question this week. A guy is looking to buy another horse, and he wants one that basically is safe to ride out on the trails and in the hills by himself or with other riders. He's taken a lot of clinics in, he's done a lot of groundwork with his horses, and he has them all going real nicely with leg yields and side passes and rollbacks and turnarounds and lead changes in the arena. Now, the horse he's looking at is about 16 years old, maybe older. He's had a lifetime of ranch work and is basically pretty reliable. And the guy took him home to try him out, and he says, I got on this horse in the arena, And he knows nothing about vertical flexion, lateral flexion, or leg yields. Even if I press one leg to his side, all he wants to do is go forward. And the owner says he's ridden one-handed in a curb bit for years, but he's roped cows and calves on the range, and he's made hundreds of miles in the bush and on the hills. And the guy says, I rode him up the trail, and boy, he's got lots of go for a horse that age. And even though he looked sideways at some scary things, he'd go right on past them. He'd trot smoothly and hold it as long as I wanted. Same with his lope. But I couldn't cue him for a lead change. When he stopped, he was a little heavy on the front end, but he would stop. But what bothers me is the lack of a foundation as far as all those leg yields and flexions and stuff go. Well, you know, I've seen a lot of these older, experienced ranch horses who really know nothing about performance-type maneuvers. But a lot of them are probably safer and more reliable to ride out in rugged country by yourself than a super tuned-up performance horse. Now, it's not all the arena drills, but it's a lot of long days of hard work, the wet saddle blankets, and learning to trust the person on his back in all kinds of challenging, high-pressure situations. His movements might not be as pretty, but the years of practical experience is what makes him seasoned and solid. He probably wouldn't win in a Western pleasure or even in a ranch riding competition, but he will most likely take you way up over the hill and bring you home safely almost every time. And for Irvin Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. When our horses see me coming out the door at chore time, they come running because they know it's the time when they get their daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. And I think that's really helping them look and feel good. You can find out more at hoffmanshorseration.com. Now, just before former Western Horseman publisher Randy Witte talks about his herd of longhorn cows, Rex Allen Jr., who you've heard here many times, has really been busy since he retired from performing. He's still writing and recording, and a song he recently wrote and recorded with Sarah Lou has really been making some sales. It's called You Are the One of My Dreams.
Like a lonesome coyote, I've wandered on my life. When I hear his high note, I know the reason why. It's like a horse without a saddle, like thunder without the rain. I long to be beside you, to feel your touch again. There's a full moon over the mountain, the stars are bright in the sky. There's a voice I hear in the night wind calling, come to me, come. You are the one of my dreams.
I can hear you calling across the canyon so deep. I long to be beside you. Do you hear the tears that I weep, like a stream without the water, like a sky without the stars? I long to be beside you. Anywhere you are,
there's a full moon over the mountain, the stars are bright in the sky. There's a voice I hear in the night wind calling, come to me, come. You are the one of my dreams. Time, I've waited a long time.
Seasons have come and gone.
but the world just kept on turning,
waiting for you to ride along.
There's a full moon over the mountain, the stars are bright in the sky. There's a voice I hear in the night wind calling, come to me, come. You are the one of my dream.
And now, back to that conversation with Randy Witte.
Randy, I just want to ask you one or two more questions before I let you go here. And I know that on your own operation, you have longhorn cattle, Texas Longhorns. Has that been part of your life for quite some time?
Oh, it's been something. We finally acquired enough acreage to where we could, we've always had horses, but I always wanted to have cattle too. So I have just enough to lose money out on a modest basis. You know, I don't want to get too big. But we enjoy our little herd of longhorn cattle. And
I think that's most of us that have spent a lot of years in the business have to pretty much look at it that way too. It's been you don't want to look too closely at that bottom line, but when it's time to wean those calves, and they go through the sale, and you know that they're yours, and the buyers know they're yours, and you've got a bit of a reputation, well, there's the satisfaction from that for sure. What have you got for horses on your place now?
Well, we've got 10 horses. Most of them, I guess you'd say, are retired old show horses. The thing that we've done as a family all through the years with our daughter Mary is from the time she was in 4-H, why we'd go to the horse shows and support her, and when we get a good horse for her, why they're like a part of the family, so we just keep them till they die. So we've got this whole barn filled with a lot of her old show horses. But my wife Marcia and I, we go trail riding a little bit, and we ride around our place there east of Colorado Springs and enjoy that. And our daughter still goes, she shows as an amateur, and routinely qualifies for the World Quarter Horse Show in Oklahoma City. So we're still there supporting her, hanging on the fence, you know, and hauling water and feed.
As part of the job, do you get to go on gathers and rides and brandings? And I imagine you would get invitations for some pretty interesting places to get horseback.
That's one of the real perks of being at Western Horseman. We do get more invitations than we can handle. So yes, I've got to go on a lot of interesting rides and ranches and so forth. It is a real nice fringe benefit to see the people. You meet people and you see places that you just wouldn't if you weren't in our position. So that's really nice.
Well, Randy, I want to thank you very much for sharing some of these insights. Thanks again for visiting, Randy.
Well, thank you, Hugh. It's been a pleasure. Best wishes to you and all your listeners.
Coming up on this week's classic Song of the West segment, it'll be one from R.W. Hampton, and then something really easy on the ears in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Now, this is where we look at one of those old classic songs of the West and try to find out a little bit more about where the song came from. And for the last several weeks, we've been digging up songs about old buckaroos and little buckaroos, and there are lots of them. This one was originally sung by Dick Foran, who was first a singer and then an actor in some early Western movies. He sang this one in the 1937 release called Cherokee Strip. And it became a hit after that movie, and Bing Crosby recorded it in an album called Cowboy Songs in 1939. And Roy Rogers sang it in that terrific Western Don't Fence Me In. It also became the theme of a series of Looney Tune cartoons in the late 1930s. And Slim Whitman, Eddie Arnold, and dozens of others have sung it and recorded it. And yeah, you can blame me if this one keeps running through your mind when you're trying to fall asleep. This is probably the latest recording of My Little Buckaroo from R.W. Hampton.
Close your sleepy eyes, my little buckaroo. while the light of western skies is shining down on you. Don't you know it's time for bed? Another day is through, so go to sleep, my little buckaroo. Don't you realize, my little buckaroo, it was from a little acorn that the oak tree grew. And remember that your dad was once a kid like you, so go to sleep, my little buckaroo. Soon you're gonna ride the range like grown-up cowboys do. Now it's time that you were rounding up a dream or two, so go to sleep, my little buckaroo. Now it's time that you were rounding up a dream or two, so go to sleep, my little buckaroo.
Good night, son.
Good night, R-Dub. Well, Marty Blocker is a working cowboy and a ranch hand for a big cattle operation just north of Cody, Nebraska. And plying his trade gives him a lot of subject matter for the poems he writes and adds a real edge of authenticity in what he writes about. And besides writing his own poems, Marty recites some of the works of the past and present masters, and really does a wide variety of songs and stories. And so for the spotlight this week, here's one of Marty's called When the Grass Still Holds the Dew.
Have you rode out into a morning amongst a cowboy crew? The air is brisk and crisp, and the grass still holds the dew. Your horse is feeling fresh and strong as you start to leave the ropes. You walk him out a little ways, and then you trot him into a lope. Someone's colt warms up his back, and he takes a couple jumps, and it ripples through the others, and a couple try to hump. And the cowboys josh and holler as the ponies give a try, and when the riders get 'em covered, we all feel a tinge of pride. As you shag out in that pre-dawn dark, you can hear the slap and tack. You feel the rhythm of the hoofbeats as your mount is making tracks. And you hear some fellers laughing as someone tells a joke, and you catch the flare of a flicked-up bick as someone lights a smoke. You finally pull up on a high spot and you wait for the sun to rise. You listen to the cowology of both the foolish and the wise. They loosen up the cinches, let the ponies catch their wind, and the boss points out the country, and the circle soon begins. Good horses, good men, good cattle. Some you'll curse, and some will make you boast. Some you'll remember as legends, and others will be just ghosts. But right now you're proud to be amongst 'em and be part of this cowboy crew, and to rode out early this morning when the grass still holds the dew.
Well, thanks again for riding along, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. And as always, thanks to our great support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And this time next week, We'll all be on board the 17th annual Spirit of the West cruise with Mark and Kathy and our cruising cowboy band, Mike Daggert, Ed Peak, Don Howard, and me. And on next week's show, I'll tell you all about our 19th annual cruise coming up in the summer of 2019. And for some great reading, I'd suggest Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. You can subscribe at cowboycountrymagazine.com or by calling 1-800-943-7336. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.